Imagine in just one night, the entire world fashion industry suddenly changed direction. All eyes from Paris to Seoul, from New York to Tokyo, are on one person, Jungkook. One upload. One video is less than a minute long from Calvin Klein, and the effect, like a meteor falling right in the middle of the global fashion world. No grandiose announcements. There is no runway. Just one visual cut. Jungkook stands in front of the camera with an aura that's hard to describe, and boom! The whole world fashion line is talking about it. From Vogue, GQ, to independent fashion accounts on TikTok, all in unison. Who else can do this, if not Jungkook? In just a few hours, the video reached millions of views, breaking the engagement record for this year's digital fashion campaign. But behind that sparkles, there is something deeper. It's not just about clothes. It's not just about Calvin Klein. And it's not just about the popularity of an idol. It is about how one figure, through one seemingly simple visual, is able to shake the industrial system that for decades was controlled by Western fashion houses. And strangely enough, it all happened without a word. Jungkook didn't say anything. No long captions, no typical brand ambassador promotions. Only expressions, looks, and gestures seemed to radiate meaning. I don't need to explain who I am. But how can that be? How can a single post create such an effect? Why does Calvin Klein seem to deliberately choose a quiet moment to fire this visual bullet? And what makes the fashion world, which is usually calm, elegant, full of calculations, suddenly become so excited just because of one short video? This is where the story gets interesting. Because behind that one post is hidden a story about strategy, a long history of relationships between brands and icons, and a cultural impact that goes far beyond numbers and likes. And that night, unknowingly, Jungkook once again proved that in the era of digital visuals, the power of authenticity can beat any form of conventional marketing. Are you ready to get behind the scenes of this phenomenon? Because what happened is not just viral. It's a new history of global fashion, written through one Instagram post. That day, the Instagram timeline seemed to stop breathing. There is no countdown. There are no teaser leaks. Just one upload from Calvin Klein's official account. Jungkook stands in the middle of a dark room, illuminated only by a soft white light that highlights the texture of his denim and leather. In less than 30 minutes, the post reached 1 million likes. Within 24 hours, it had more than 10 million views, making it the fastest interacting fashion campaign in Calvin Klein's official account history. But why did the world react so quickly? Let's pull it back a little. Since 2023, Jungkook's collaboration with Calvin Klein has created a phenomenon that is difficult to match. But this time, what's different isn't just the visuals or the outfits. It's the way Calvin Klein wraps simplicity into a symbol of cultural power. There are no superfluous poses, no dramatic lighting. Only Jungkook's presence is too real to ignore. A slightly disheveled hairstyle, a flat but intense expression, a denim outfit that blends perfectly with her body. And this is what caused an uproar among fashion observers in Europe. Fashion is usually associated with experimentation, but Jungkook comes with visual honesty. It does not show luxury, but reality. Her body is not just a clothing medium, but a living narrative about young Asians who are now leading the global face of fashion. Behind the scenes, Calvin Klein's internal sources even revealed that this upload was not a coincidence. They've been designing this moment for months, with the approach of less is more. They know that every time Jungkook appears, the internet not only reacts, it explodes. And sure enough, just one upload sent shares of PVH Corp, Calvin Klein's parent company, up 4% in 2 days. The media started calling it the Jungkook effect. But it's not just the numbers that make the news. People's reactions also illustrate something bigger. A fashion blogger in London wrote, "We live in an era where Jungkook is more influential than the Paris runway," while an editor of Vogue Japan added, "He doesn't sell clothes, he sells feelings." What does that mean? That is, in the 1 second when the camera panned Jungkook, the audience saw not only clothes, they feel the aura, a blend of confidence, simplicity, and universal appeal, a body language that doesn't need subtitles. No wonder the public reaction was so emotional. Admiring comments flooded the column, from BTS fans to top designers. Some say, "He doesn't just wear Calvin Klein, he is Calvin Klein." That sentence ended up becoming a viral quote that was even re-quoted by Harper's Bazaar. Interestingly, after the upload went viral, Jungkook remained silent. There is no follow-up, no behind the scenes, as if he knows that silence actually amplifies the impact. This is a form of marketing silent power, where the star lets the public interpret for themselves. And the result was amazing. Calvin Klein not only earned a digital record, but also opened a huge discussion in the fashion industry about how the new generation believes more in real figures than in far-fetched advertising. One video, one small movement, and the fashion world officially switches the center of gravity. From New York to Seoul, from brands to people, from Calvin Klein to Jungkook. When the viral effect began to spread, the reaction of the fashion world was even more interesting. Behind the big fashion stages, there is an unspoken anxiety. How is it that a single video of less than a minute is able to beat an entire campaign with a multi-million-dollar budget? Luxury brands are beginning to recalculate their strategy. Some have even begun to consider embracing Asian Idol in a more authentic and less directed style. One of the creative directors of a European fashion house even anonymously admitted in the fashion media, "We already suspected Jungkook was a phenomenon, but didn't expect him to create a global trend with just one post." In South Korea, industry analysts refer to this moment as the turning point of pop fashion. Previously, the international fashion world often viewed Asian trends as just a temporary wave, but after Jungkook's video, the paradigm instantly changed. Now, it is no longer Paris or Milan that dictate tastes, but Seoul and Tokyo. In fact, fashion schools in New York and London began discussing the Jungkook strategy as a case study, how one visual is able to change the course of global culture. More deeply, this phenomenon is also shaking the boundary between music and fashion. For years, K-pop idols were often considered mere lone stars in the fashion world. But Jungkook broke that stereotype. It does not come as a model that only lends its face. It comes as a living narrative, a young icon reflecting the values that a new generation is searching for: freedom, honesty, and unlimited expression. No wonder that after the video went viral, sales of Calvin Klein's denim line rose 37% in the Asian market within a week. Even in the United States, online sales figures increased by 23%, a record high since 2021. But the most significant effect is precisely not on numbers, but on perception. The world is starting to realize that the biggest influencers today are not the ones who talk the loudest, but the ones who are most sincere. And among all the faces in the fashion world, Jungkook comes across as a symbol of that honesty, a person who does not seek to be something, but only to be himself. Ironically, in an era where fashion is often saturated with imagery, it is precisely sincerity that wins the hearts of the world. And this is where Jungkook's powers work like magic. Funnily enough, if you notice, Jungkook never said a word about the post. No captions, no promotion, no thanks to brand. But that's exactly where the magic lies. Jungkook's silence doesn't mean passive. It's the most powerful form of communication in a world that's too noisy. Every time he is silent, the world speaks louder. Netizens, the media, even branding experts are all vying to interpret the meaning behind the video. Some say it's a form of liberation from the image of idol. Some believe it's a statement that Jungkook is now standing on a global level, on par with fashion icons like David Beckham or Harry Styles. And there are also those who take it as clear evidence that HYBE can no longer control the entire narrative around Jungkook. It now belongs to the world. Not in the literal sense, but in the symbolic sense. Jungkook has become the representation of a generation that does not want to be governed by the system, but still elegant and classy. One video, one facial expression, one look, they all spoke silently, but the message resonated with the whole world. The fashion world has finally come to its senses. Trends are no longer determined by mood boards or runway concepts. The trend is now born of the moment, from humans, an authenticity that cannot be reproduced. And in the history of Calvin Klein, no figure has been able to bring the idea to life as powerfully as Jungkook. He's not just an ambassador. He's not just the face of a campaign. He's a cultural event, a symbol that, in the digital age, the most explosive power does not come from strategy, but from the courage to appear as you are. And that night, through one post, Jungkook didn't just break fashion records, he rewrote the rules of the game. The fashion world now has two eras, before Jungkook and after Jungkook. As soon as the effect of the video spread around the world, one thing began to be felt clearly. The world of fashion has completely changed. Big brands are starting to realize that what they're dealing with isn't just celebrities with huge followings, but a vibrant cultural force. Jungkook doesn't just wear Calvin Klein. On the contrary, Calvin Klein lives in Jungkook's orbit. She was not just a model, but the center of gravity of a new trend that even big names like Gucci, Prada, and Balenciaga began to conduct in-depth evaluations. They realized that the world is no longer fascinated by artificial glamour. The modern public wants someone who is real, who has an emotional connection without coercion, and who appears confident without much ado. And Jungkook, unwittingly, embodies all of that. No need for superfluous properties, no need for a high stage, just a simple video in denim clothes, and the whole earth trembles. Media analysts call it the authentic shift. A major shift from the era of artificial models to real representations. But to fully understand Jungkook's impact, we need to trace the long journey that led him to this point. Since he was a trainee at BTS, Jungkook has always been known as a perfectionist but introverted figure. He rarely spoke, but when he performed, the world was silent. There was an aura of mystery in the way he looked at the camera, as if he knew how to send a wordless message. And in the world of fashion, it is a rare weapon. The camera can smell falsehood, but it cannot resist sincerity. That's where Calvin Klein knew that they weren't dealing with an ordinary model. Jungkook has something that even Hollywood actors find it difficult to have: authentic silence. And when the video was released, the whole world finally understood. But interestingly, this effect doesn't stop at the promotion level. Jungkook's campaign began to influence the way designers thought about the aesthetics of masculinity. If earlier the image of a man in fashion had to be strong, dominant, and decisive, now the definition has changed. Jungkook shows that calmness, tenderness, and a sensitive side can actually look very powerful. He introduced new masculinity, a form of confidence, without the need to intimidate. Vogue even wrote a special article. Jungkook's masculinity is the future of fashion. It's not just a compliment. That's a confession. Because for the first time, the fashion world has finally found a balance between strength and honesty in one figure. In Korea, the effect is felt even more widely. Many local brands began to change the concept of their photo shoots to more natural, more humane. Even young models are beginning to learn to pose calmly, a style now referred to as the Jungkook presence. That is, standing still but emitting an energy that makes all eyes turn. The term is also used in Seoul and Tokyo design schools to describe the concept of visual minimalism with emotional impact. And all that starting from one 45-second video. The fashion world seemed to be doing a massive reset, and the button was pressed by a young boy who used to just want to sing on stage. But that's Jungkook's strength. It's not chasing a trend, it's the trend itself. When other designers were still looking for direction, Jungkook was already standing there, becoming a symbol of the future, as if he said through his silence, "You don't need to shout to be heard, you just have to be honest." 3 days after the post was released, the data started talking. A report from Launch Metrics, one of the leading fashion analytics agencies, shows that the media impact value, MIV, of Jungkook's upload for Calvin Klein reached more than $14 million in just 48 hours. For context, that equates to the entire promotional value of a season of Milan Fashion Week runways. This means that one Jungkook upload can match the promotional power of 20 international fashion shows at once. Incredible? More than that. Because the effect is not just a number, but a narrative. In a matter of hours, hundreds of fashion media wrote articles about her. From Harper's Bazaar to the Business of Fashion, everyone agrees. Calvin Klein just broke the record for the largest engagement in the history of their industry. But even more astonishing, traffic to Calvin Klein's official website increased by more than 600% in 24 hours. Many observers judge this phenomenon not only because of Jungkook's popularity, but because of the visual credibility he brings. There is something that makes the public believe that Jungkook is not just selling products, but a lifestyle. When he put on those jeans, the public didn't feel like they were watching an ad. They feel that they are looking at themselves, the most confident and free version, and that's at the heart of Calvin Klein's strategy, erasing the distance between brand and audience through tangible figures. In an internal interview leaked to the media, one of Calvin Klein's creative team even admitted that they deliberately allowed the video to appear without emotional filters. That is, there is no direction to smile or pose. Jungkook was allowed to move according to his instincts. "We didn't direct him, we observed him," said one of the photographers. The result? A campaign that feels honest, intense, and touches the limits of visual art that mainstream fashion rarely touches. But the side effect is also remarkable. Calvin Klein now gets a new wave of customers who come from non-fashion circles, including music fans, artists, and even gamers. This means that the brand has managed to penetrate the cross-industry market with just one video. At this point, it's clear that Jungkook isn't just a fashion icon, he's a cultural bridge. It bridges the once separate worlds of fashion, music, and pop culture into one. Every brand is now vying for their own version of Jungkook, but almost all of them have failed, because in the end, Jungkook's power cannot be replicated through strategy, algorithms, or even money. That power comes from an aura born of authenticity. And for the fashion world, which so far too often lives in an artificial image, it is like finding fresh air after years of breathing in perfume.